Hi, everyone. The following excerpt or excerpts come from Carl Sagan's last book, The Demon-Haunted World: Science as a Candle in the Dark, published in 1996, the same year he died of cancer, aged 62. The book is sort of Sagan's final manifesto, a collection of essays which expound the virtues of science and skepticism as the surest path to knowledge. Sagan is convinced that his investigate and follow the evidence approach is the best way to find the truth about anything. Among the things Sagan discusses is the possibility of an afterlife, which fits well with our earlier look at Plato's Apology and the possible outcomes Socrates considers as he accepts his death sentence. Death as eternal sleep, which Socrates is fine with because he enjoys sleeping, and death as a journey to another place, an underworld or afterlife, which Socrates is also fine with, for it will allow him to meet his heroes and see his loved ones again. In the chapter I'm about to quote, Sagan talks a bit about his own thoughts on death and the possibility of life after death. Naturally, Sagan is skeptical, but hopeful all the same. But then he offers another possible idea of what might happen after death, a unique idea of the afterlife that I wanted to share with you. So we will read this excerpt together, or these excerpts together, and then I would like you to share with me your thoughts. I want you to consider what Sagan says along with the possible outcomes we discussed in Plato's Apology, the defense of Socrates. Can you name 3 pros and 3 cons and decide if Sagan's speculation is a good outcome to hope for? Sagan says, "My parents died years ago. I was very close to them. I still miss them terribly. I know I always will. I long to believe that their essence, their personalities, what I loved so much about them are, really and truly, still in existence somewhere. I wouldn't ask very much, maybe 5 or 10 minutes a year, say, to tell them about their grandchildren, to catch them up on the latest news, to remind them that I love them. There's a part of me, no matter how childish it sounds, that wonders how they are. Is everything all right, I want to ask. The last words I found myself saying to my father at the moment of his death were, 'Take care.' Sometimes I dream that I'm talking to my parents, and suddenly, still immersed in the dream work, I'm seized by the overpowering realization that they didn't really die, that it's all been some kind of horrible mistake. Why, here they are, alive and well, my father making wry jokes, my mother earnestly advising me to wear a muffler because the weather is chilly. When I wake up, I go through the abbreviated process of mourning all over again. Plainly, there's something within me that's ready to believe in life after death, and it's not the least bit interested in whether there's any sober evidence for it. So I don't guffaw at the woman who visits her husband's grave and chats him up every now and then, maybe on the anniversary of his death. It's not hard to understand. And if I have difficulties with the ontological status of who she's talking to, that's all right. That's not what this is about. This is about humans being human. More than a third of American adults believe that on some level they've made contact with the dead. The number seems to have jumped by 15% between 1977 and 1988. A quarter of Americans believe in reincarnation. If some good evidence for life after death were announced, I'd be eager to examine it. But it would have to be real scientific data, not mere anecdote. A very different prospect for something like eternal life was once proposed by the versatile British scientist J.B.S. Haldane, who was, among many other things, one of the founders of population genetics. Haldane imagined a far future when the stars have darkened and space is mainly filled with a cold, thin gas. Nevertheless, if we wait long enough, statistical fluctuations in the density of this gas will occur. Over immense periods of time, the fluctuations will be sufficient to reconstitute a universe something like our own. If the universe is infinitely old, there will be an infinite number of such reconstitutions, Haldane pointed out. So in an infinitely old universe, with an infinite number of appearances of galaxies, stars, planets, and life, an identical Earth must appear on which you and all your loved ones will be reunited. I'll be able to see my parents again and introduce them to the grandchildren they never knew. And all this will happen not once, but an infinite number of times. But in this reflection, I have underestimated what infinity means. In Haldane's picture, there will be universes, indeed an infinite number of them, in which our brains will have full recollection of many previous rounds. Satisfaction is at hand, tempered, though, by the thought that all of these other universes, which will also come into existence, again, not once, but an infinite number of times, with tragedies and horrors vastly outstripping anything I've experienced this turn. The consolation of Haldane depends, though, on what kind of universe we live in, and maybe such arcana as whether there's enough matter eventually to reverse the expansion of the universe, and the character of vacuum fluctuations. Those with a deep longing for life after death might, it seems, devote themselves to cosmology, quantum gravity, elementary particle physics, and especially transfinite arithmetic.